and welcome to the Needham channel. I'm Yu Xiaoyuan. Today I'm honored to sit down with Massachusetts House Representative Denise Garlick as she prepares to retire after 14 years of dedicated public service. Representative Garlick, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's my honor as well.
I mean, you've had a pretty remarkable career. Even before your time on Beacon Hill, you brought strong background in public health and local leadership, including experiences serving on the Needham Select Board and Needham Board of Health. So what inspired you to take the step and run for state representative?
So I think that you have already set the table for what that journey looked like. But for me, you know, I was a registered nurse for more than 4 decades at the bedside. And in that experience became the president of the Mass Nurses Association, which is 23,000 nurses statewide. That experience brought me to Beacon Hill, to the State House, advocating on the issues of health care, on the issues related to patients, and certainly on the profession of nursing. And I do remember there was a day when I sat there trying to make the case for an important issue and thought, why am I always asking? Why can't I be the person deciding? And I carried that with me to my experiences here in Needham. I've been on the ballot for more than 30 years in Needham as a town meeting member. I served 2 terms on our Board of Health, and I was the chair of the Board of Health when we formed the Needham Coalition on Suicide Prevention. And in that experience realized that in order to achieve a goal and to have the resources to make it happen, we needed good relationships in the town with the select board and with the state as well. And then to realize that goal, I ran for the select board. And while I was on the select board, I was the chair of the Senior Center Exploratory Committee and the building of the new center at the Heights, the Senior Center. And in that experience learned how much was available through the state and how the state could be a real partner to the town. And so ran for the office of state representative. So I think I didn't start out thinking I would end up as the state representative, but in every step of the journey to achieve the goals, I was able to see where the next possible place was for the solutions.
So what are some of the accomplishments that you are most proud of?
I'd like to break it up a little bit and talk to you first. I think a major accomplishment. When I first was elected, I said with great determination that I was going to deliver a report to the community, to each town every year. And a very seasoned political ally said to me, don't say that. You know, life is complicated. You don't know what the future looks like, and you might not be able to follow through on that. But it was such a strong principle to me that I had been asked to do a job, and I wanted people to know I was doing that job. And what I am very proud to report to you is that after 13 years of service in all 3 towns, I have delivered 39 reports to the community. And in each and every one of those, I reported for half an hour and then opened it up to discussion. And in each and every one of those reports, not only was I able to share my work, but I met new people. There were always folks coming that wanted to know more about state government, who wanted to meet who this person was who was carrying this title. And the constituents shared issues that were vitally important to them that were sometimes new and unique to me. And it gave me a new voice to listen to, a new way to see an issue, and more concerns to work on. The other accomplishments are certainly around legislation and around budget. And as a sponsor, I have over 150 bills that I have sponsored, and many have become law either in statute or through the budget. But I wanted to highlight a few for you. And one is directly out of our town, directly out of our district, right? And that was on a veterans annuity bill. Came from a conversation down at the VFW. An annuity is a payment to a disabled veterans survivors and had not increased in more than 20 years. We were working on the language of that bill, on the concern that it hadn't increased at all, And over several terms, I have to tell you, it took several terms, but we did accomplish that. And that was a direct result of my relationship to our veterans in this town, and it impacts veterans all across the Commonwealth. Right? Another bill that was directly, that I sponsored, was directly from my work with the Needham Public Schools. And it was a little nuts and bolts bill, I have to tell you, but it was about school efficiency. And what it meant was how we use the resources, the monies that are available to the schools, and how they can move forward to effectively and efficiently use that money. And it dealt with procurement rules in the Commonwealth, and it dealt with limits on what the procurement was, but it made a major difference. I worked with the school superintendent, with Ann Galati. We then expanded it to the Mass Association of School Superintendents, to the Mass Business Offices, and that bill, in fact, became law. I also brought forward bills directly related to my own experience. We now have in Massachusetts an ICU nurse staffing ratio law. It's only in our ICUs, but it is the only law in the country that actually mandates how many nurses should be available, and in Massachusetts, to our most vulnerable, our most critically ill patients in our hospitals. I worked on a bill related to public health when you were talking about public health. And that bill is a great story because it is a story of multiple sessions and multiple bills. And it began with the commission. I wrote legislation on a commission on public health. The entire series of things come under the umbrella of the State Action Plan for Public Health Excellence. And the first step was the commission. Ed Cosgrove, the longest serving member on the Needham Board of Health, served on that commission as my designee. They brought forward recommendations. And then right before COVID, we brought forward the first bill. And the first bill, unrelated to COVID, laid out the framework for what public health in the Commonwealth should be uniformly, right? Presently, what we see at that time was that it was very fragmented. It depended on the town, it depended on the commitment to public health, it depended on the resources available. So we laid out the framework, and then we went through COVID. And through COVID, what we learned was that the framework was very good, but we didn't have a way to operationalize it. And so the second SAFE bill, which has just been signed into law within the past 6 weeks, was the bill that talked about how to operationalize that bill, where the resources were, where the training was, where the support should be for our local public health. So we have the district needs, the constituent needs, we have the piece around legislation, and then we always have the budget. Right? And I am known for saying this, that a good idea without money is just a good idea. So that issue of budget is always important, and it's important every year. The legislative cycle is 2 years, but the budget is every single year. And in the budget, I have worked both for the district and then was the vice chair of Ways and Means, thinking about the larger issues in the Commonwealth as well. But in our district, the work that I was able to do and the case I had to make, and I have to tell you, it's very difficult when there's so many needs in the Commonwealth to talk about our district and say we need these resources when we know that there are many communities with many critical needs. And so to be able to secure money in the district was a valuable asset. Part of that was I was able to secure $1.25 million through the ARPA monies, which was actual money that we had in hand for the Needham Housing Authority. And that was the money that jump-started what is this incredible project that the Needham Housing Authority is engaged in around the Linden Chambers development and work that needs to be done to improve that housing in our town. I was able to think about, over the time, they brought more than $240 million to our schools. That's pretty formulaic, but in every year I served, the towns in my district received more money. The issue around Beth Israel Deaconess Needham, when we talk about my commitment to behavioral health, was more than $200,000 for what at that time, and it was done over years, pieces of that over years, for a pilot program that had been developed by John Fogarty and Scott Bach from Riverside Community Services at the time, around how to better access services and better network to the community services for people with behavioral health problems. That pilot now is a model in the Commonwealth and is replicated right across Massachusetts. There was certainly money. The major project was the Medfield State Hospital property and their connection to the cultural arts and the Bell Forge, which is the centerpiece of what they are envisioning as the development of that property and housing, and that was more than $430,000. So all of that money takes a representative that knows their district well and can make the case on why this money is needed. One of the things we did that I'm very proud of and was very early in my tenure was the money that we secured for the rail trail for all three towns, for Needham, Dover, and Medfield. And we had done considerable work on this, and we had money in a bond bill, which is like a promise. And you don't have the money till you have to have the language, but you don't have the money until you can actually get that money allocated. And we had done so much work on that. And then one summer afternoon, we get a call from the chair of Ways and Means and the Secretary of Administration and Finance, and they're like, can you come down and make the case for the rail trail? And because we were so well prepared, Amanda Bernardo, who was a Needham resident, was my legislative aide at the time. We went down, we were able to get that money, and that money was the final piece that allowed us to move forward with the rail trail in both Needham and Medfield. So, and Dover is still working on their segment. But that kind of work, that kind of homework, that kind of knowledge makes a major difference in being able to get that money and then be able to make sure that that money is being used for a purpose that's meaningful.
What are some of the toughest decisions and situations you have faced?
We are very fortunate to live in a district like Needham, Dover, and Medfield. But we must not be blind to the fact that people have many needs in any community in the Commonwealth and in our communities as well. And the toughest issues are really related to the constituent issues. And I cannot claim credit for all of this work. Let me tell you, I have an incredibly committed and dedicated staff. But the call to the state representative's office is almost often called the call of last resort. That is the moment when people who are in need and have tried everything they know how to do are just banging their heads against the wall of state government, and they call and say, this is my issue. So an example of that is we had a constituent, an elderly man, scheduled for surgery, realizing that there had been a glitch in the Mass Health insurance program and the surgery was going to be canceled. And we really scrambled and made many phone calls and ensured that that Mass Health insurance was in place and the surgery went as scheduled, and it made a difference. Another example of that, we had an individual, like many individuals in our town, dealing with the issue of addiction. But it was very complicated in how we could best serve this individual, where the services were, procuring those services, then moving forward with them on a continuum of care to their housing and what support services would look like. This individual had lost their job in the process. And then in the story of addiction, which is part of the whole addiction continuum, this individual relapsed. And we began the work again around recovery, around housing, around support services. And now it was very difficult to put those things in place. And my staff, who had worked so very long and so very hard on all of these issues, then came to me because we needed to activate a broader network. And I've always said that, I certainly can't solve all these issues, but my magic power is to broker meetings. And in fact, brought together the entire team of the individual, the family, my staff, the state agencies, the governor's office, and together we worked. And I, with a very happy heart, can report to you that person is doing very well now.
Wonderful.
All of that work mattered, and that individual now is living on their own, has a job, and it is the story of what a state representative can do, working together in partnership. And I think it is an example of a person in great need who should always know that they are not alone, that there are ways to be able to find help and people that want to help.
During your time in office, are there anything that you wish you had done differently, or any opportunity you regret not pursuing?
I think the best way I can answer that is I don't have any regrets. I truly did the best job I knew how to do every single day. But it is such a complicated job, right? Even in this conversation, right, when we're talking about public policy, we're talking about budget, we're talking about constituent needs, how varied those are, right? In every session that I served, I advanced in the responsibility that I assumed, right? A speaker nominates you for position, your colleagues elect you to that position. I had served on all of our healthcare committees. I was the chair of Elder Affairs. I then became the chair of Mental Health, Substance Use and Recovery, the vice chair of Ways and Means, the chair of Bills on Third Reading, which is the final gateway to the floor for bills, and currently the chair of Education. In every single one of those ways, right, and that's all budget, that's all process, it's all policy, I learned so much. Every day I learned something. What I wish is I started out with all that knowledge, but it actually took me 14 years to get it.
Has serving in this role shaped you personally, and what are some of the lessons and values you will carry with you moving forward?
I think one of the things I would want to share with you when I talk to you about how complicated and multi-layered this job can be is that when I first began to serve, I had a colleague who said to me, now listen, Denise, it's going to be a roller coaster. And I was like, that's okay. I was a nurse, I've seen roller coasters before, right? What I didn't know is he meant in the same day, right? And in the same day, there are these great moments that you might have on the floor of the House of Representatives, and you return to the office and there's something that hasn't gone well, or it hasn't come together, or a call that hasn't been returned when you're looking for resources, right? And I think that piece of knowing that it was such a roller coaster has become part of how I understand how complicated issues are, and what it means to really be able to work with other individuals, and what it means to know that you have to stay with an issue, stay with the problem, keep working for a solution. I think that's something that I've learned. And I will tell you too that this is probably the nerdy part of my personality, but every single bill that is filed in the Massachusetts legislature by our Constitution has to have a public hearing by the Constitution. So as I have chaired those multiple committees, you can only imagine, with more than 7,000 bills filed and then split up to different committees, how many public hearings I have sat in. I believe it is the most fascinating experience to hear from voices across the Commonwealth about issues and concerns, about proposed solutions. So that certainly is something that I have learned and experienced, and has become a value in my life, about making sure that I hear as many voices as possible on any one issue.
Now, retirement is a big transition. Are there any new projects or passion you would like to pursue?
You know, I've been working since I was 14 years old, right? To feel that I have had this long, really fascinating career, you know, in the work that I've done as a nurse, in the opportunities that I received because I was a nurse, and then in elected office. To reflect on that and to feel good and positive about that, I think is a gift. I think to move forward, you know, I live here in Needham. You know, I care deeply about my community. I will always want to be of service in some way. But what I am going to be able to do is set my own schedule. I am deeply committed to the Needham Housing Authority project. I have worked on that for 14 years as a state representative, but even years before that. And I currently serve on the THOC committee, which is the financial oversight committee of the town for that project related to the Needham Housing Authority. I will continue, as always, my work with the Charles River Center and individuals with disabilities, and a project that they are hoping to pursue as well. We are deeply fortunate to have the Charles River Center and the many families in the towns of Needham, Dover, and Medfield that they serve. And I will also continue on in my work with individuals with disabilities. I am currently the elected chair of the Permanent Funded Commission on the Status of Individuals with Disabilities, and I will continue to serve in that position moving forward. And our work around certainly the employment issues of people with disabilities, the people who are employed to serve people with disabilities, and our new focus that I believe the commissioners will vote on around a focus on health and the many issues for people with disabilities. So I will always continue that work. And for anyone who is thinking about the many needs we have in our community, I want to reassure everyone that I will be on Trout Pond Lane, and I'm only a phone call away. And I think you may know, and I have told everyone, this incredible blessing in my life and Russell's is that we had 4 grandchildren in 3 years. And so these little ones are growing rapidly. When I talk about my life was a roller coaster every single day, their life is a roller coaster every day. And I want to be along for the ride. I don't want to miss them in this precious time.
And lastly, what are the messages you want to leave with your constituents?
I think the message I want to leave with my constituents is that we need and deserve good government. But good government is a partnership. It's a partnership with the people that we elect, that we need to hold accountable, that we need to hold responsible. It's a partnership with the agencies, whether it's town government or the state agencies that are charged with responsibilities. It's a partnership with, most importantly, active citizens, that we are all involved in this. And when I talk about active citizenship, one of the things I want people to know, most importantly, is that their story matters. When I talk about the number of public hearings I listen to, there is nobody else that can tell your story but you, right? What the problem means to you, why you think something is a solution, why you are actually addressing something. And those voices make all the difference. And so to be an active citizenship is not just voting, but please, please always vote, right? But it is being engaged and having the confidence to know that you, as a citizen, your input is needed and valued. And to preserve that kind of partnership and to believe in good government and to know that it takes all of us to make it work.
Thank you, Representative Garlick, so much for sharing your story and the insights with me today. And I also want to thank you on behalf of our viewers for your dedicated service and wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you. You're very kind. I want you to know from the bottom of my heart and through you to the many viewers of the Needham channel that it has been an honor and privilege, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you.